Hello and welcome to the second online rock club. Thanks very much for all of you that have had a look at the first one. What we're going to do will be similar in format to the session last week. So I'm Sam, I'm a coach at High Sports Crawley, and the aim of these videos is to provide a little bit of structure, and today we're going to run a quiz, which I promised you last week. I'm going to run a quiz for fun. You can message those answers back to us through YouTube or Facebook or email, any platform you like to get the answers back to me. And we're going to do a bit more gear knowledge. We're going to talk about climbing shoes this week and also carabiners, different types of carabiners for different situations and what their uses might be. I'm going to recommend you some interesting climbing films and maybe a couple of apps that we can use to help keep us fit. And also I'm very keen to hear any questions that you may have and respond to them. So we're going to go straight into some recommended films. Now I'd like to recommend the film Maru. Now Maru tells a story of Conrad Anker and two amazing climbers attempting to climb an unclimbed peak. The story is really well told, and it's an especially good film because it features some incredible high-end cutting-edge climbing, but it's also very well put together and engaging, and it's interesting as a story for the human journey that they all go through and the changes that have to happen within the climbers personally so that they're going to be able to complete the challenge of climbing their unclimbed peak. Now, an app that we can all be using to help keep us fit would be the Crimpd app. That's CRIMPD. It's available on the App Store for Android as well as Apple products, and it's been put together by top coaches, so definitely strongly recommend the Crimpd app. IFSC World Cups can be a really entertaining thing to watch, especially for climbers that are becoming obsessed with movement. Many of our rock club children who are working towards climbing the next grade, will have developed a really strong understanding of how their body can move through space and balance and things like that, and how it feels to execute different moves. So watching top athletes competing at that level can be really interesting and really good for your route reading as well if you try and anticipate the sequence of moves the climbers are going to do. So you can get those at the IFSC official YouTube channel. So I strongly recommend that you go onto their YouTube channel and check out some films of past World Cups. A really interesting film that's I think rated 15 or something like that, so just for the older viewers that we may have, would be Rockpunkt. That's ROTTPUNKT, and that tells the story of Alex Megos, an incredible climber, one of the strongest climbers in the world right now. And that's quite an entertaining film as well, and it has some fantastic climbing history for the Franken-Jura region, as well as stories about Kurt Albert and Wolfgang Gulick, who were incredibly important in helping the sport to evolve into what it has become today. Shauna Coxey has been putting together a home training series, and I would definitely recommend that you follow her. On Facebook she'll be advertising those, and they can be watched via YouTube platform. Shauna's fantastic at speaking to people. She's got a really good manner, and she's a top-end athlete, world-class athlete, so yeah, we'd strongly recommend getting on board with her series. Now, without further ado, we're going to go straight into the quiz. So fingers on buzzers, or rather grab a pen and paper and get ready to send these back. I'll let you know what your score was when you send me your answers. So, question 1. What year did High Sports open? Question 2. What's the hardest sport climb in the UK? Bonus point if you can tell me who got the first ascent on it. How high did Alex Honnold free solo to reach the top of Freerider on El Capitan? This was featured in the film Free Solo, which was very popular, and I know it was important to a lot of the kids that climb with us for them to see that film. So what height was that for question 3? What height did Alex Honnold have to free solo to reach the top of Freerider? Now, question 4. What type of carabiner should be used for a clove hitch knot? Your next question. Where is Trango Tower? Trango, Trango Tower. Where is that in the world? At which UK crag would you find the traditionally protected route End of the Affair E8-6C? At which crag in the UK would you find Stinging Nettle? It's font 7A+, boulder problem, in the latest guidebook. Okay, going to move on to some picture questions now. So for the next 3 questions, I'm going to show you a bit of a map. If you find it a little bit hard to read, that's part of the challenge. But here we go. So what I want with these maps is I want you to tell me which part of the UK would you find this beautiful scenic area described by the map in. So your first map. And your second. And finally, I'll show this one more time. So this is map 1. This is hand-drawn map 2. This is map 3. Okay, thanks for playing along. Send in your answers, we'll see how you do. So also, if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer, I'd be very happy to handle that as well, so please do send them through. The next thing we're going to look at is a few different types of carabiner, and we're going to talk about what they're for. So here we have a D-shaped carabiner. D-shaped carabiners are very useful, versatile. This one has a screw gate on it. We use screw gates when we want to have that additional security, for example at a main anchor, or when connecting a belay device, or a lanyard, as we demonstrated in the previous video, that could be used for setting up an abseil. So that would be a situation where we'd want a locking carabiner, and this is a D-shaped carabiner. This is a quick draw. You have a fixed end, and this end is designed to help you clip the rope. Now, you've also got a free end, and that allows a little bit of play in the direction of load that you've got there, and it allows the carabiner to sit nicely. Now, it's always the free end that you would use to connect to the bolt or piece of protection that you're clipping, and it's always the fixed end that we'd want to using for clipping in ropes. Now, these gates don't lock. However, quick draws are something we tend to use quite a lot of. It would be, if you have say 5 or 6 quick draws clipped in that situation we're less concerned about each one of them needing to be a screw gate. In fact, it's more than sufficient when you've got a number of quick draws in your system to be using these kind of wire gate carabiners. Now, as well as wire gate carabiners, you can also get carabiners that have a more solid gate. Now, that's desirable for carrying something like protection that you may place on lead, because it makes it harder to drop things, particularly when you're in this situation. This bulkier gate makes handling easier. Now, one thing that you may notice with this type of carabiner is that if it was hanging and then took a sharp load and it banged into the rock, it is actually possible, if you hear that snapping sound, I had to get a real super slow motion to show you that, but that's the sound of this opening slightly. Scary, right? So suddenly these wire gates start to look a lot more attractive because there's no sound indicating any motion of the gate whatsoever, and that's because the gate has very low mass because it's made out of wire. So these are actually very sound, very suitable carabiner to use for a quick draw. Right, last one we have, this is a HMS carabiner. It's often used on a belay device, and we always use a locker for the belay device. HMS carabiners have room, if you remember from last week, for 2 strands of rope, so that might even help you with your quiz. The next thing that we're going to look at is climbing shoes. We're going to look at different types of climbing shoes and try and break down some of the terminology. It can be quite a confusing landscape when you go to buy your first pair of rock shoes because there's simply so much available. So first of all, we have here a medium downturned synthetic climbing shoe from Evolve. Evolve are a vegan climbing shoe company, so vegans will possibly be very happy to check out Evolve. Now, synthetic shoes do not stretch over time, so when you buy them, you want to buy them so that when you're trying them out in the store, they fit you the way you want them to fit for the rest of the time you're going to own them, because a synthetic shoe won't really change size much over time. Synthetic shoes are very, very popular these days, so that's an example of a medium aggressive shoe. What do we mean when we say aggressive? There are certain things that climbing shoe designers do, for example downturn the shoe or make the toe slightly asymmetric like this, and that's designed to give you an advantage when you climb, but it can be less comfortable, especially to wear for a long time. So a shoe like this would be ideal for a short, difficult route. So we've looked at a synthetic shoe that's quite modern and adapted. So here we've got a leather shoe that's similarly asymmetric on the toe and downturns. Now, these shoes have no midsole. They have almost complete freedom of movement through the middle of the shoe. Now, what that gives you when pressing down on the toe is a bit more stability. If you see how the shoe moves when you put force on the toe. So yeah, big fan of that. Now this is actually quite a comfortable shoe to wear if you size it properly. It's leather, so it will stretch quite a bit, possibly up to a size and a half or 2 sizes. It depends, personal preference really, how you would like to fit your shoes. So now let's have a look at something a bit different. Okay, flat shoe. This is a synthetic shoe. The previous model was leather, so these are even stiffer than the old ones. Now, a flat shoe like this is kind of going to be the king of edging on the toe. The fronts of these stiff flat shoes are incredible, and you'll get some of the best performance on edging from a fully stiffened flat shoe like this, made of good rubber. So the disadvantage that you might have relative to something more asymmetric is especially with heel hooking. So if you compare the heels on these 2 different shoes, the one on my right is kind of just easier to use. It sticks out more, making it easier to latch onto things with and to get that hooking motion. And the whole design of the midsole really helps the heel to work very well. So when you're pulling with the heel like this, similarly to what I showed you with the toe before, putting pressure through the shoe actually gives you a bit more support, because they've very cleverly designed it. So a flat shoe that's tight like this is often very popular for limestone crags, and where there's a lot of edging to do, so those front points are excellent for that. This shoe's become kind of an example of what's become most popular really for indoor climbing and also outdoor climbing in recent years, trying to get as much performance as possible with some comfort. Now, every climbing shoe has an inside edge, which is the area just under your big toe. It's got an outside edge, which you can imagine as being the back 3 toes. And you can front point with it, so you can completely front on, or you can place the heel. So we've gone through a bit of a quiz. We've looked at some climbing shoes and the different parts of the shoe and how they're used for climbing, as well as some different styles. And we're going to have a look next at some knot tying. We're going to be doing the figure of 8 on the bite and the alpine butterfly, so let's go for that. A good alternative to the clove hitch for main anchors would be the figure of 8. Now, we've already looked at rethreading the figure of 8, but I'm going to show you another way to tie it. So when we hold 2 strands of the rope together like that, it's called a bite of rope. Now, for this knot to work, we need, on my body, from about my shoulder to my index finger worth of rope. It's good to find a measurement on your own body. If you're smaller than me, maybe it's your whole arm span or your height. Or if you're bigger than me, maybe it's not as far as your shoulder to your index. So if I step back so you can see what I'm doing, we're going to loop the rope towards my body and under itself. Then we're going to carry on wrapping the rope around itself, so we've got a 360 twist all the way around the rope. We're going to take these 2 strands of rope and pull the middle of them through the top of the knot, and then slide both ends of the knot to secure it. Figure of 8 might be seen as preferable to a clove hitch at a main anchor because there's a lot less slippage involved, especially once the knot has been really tightened and weighted. There's almost no slippage whatsoever on either side. So for example, if you're going to set a top rope up on the sandstone, as many of us love to, the sandstone being the crags near East Grinstead, most of the anchors are at the top. And if you set up a clove hitch as your main anchor and climb on it for the whole afternoon, you may find quite a lot of slippage has occurred at the end of the day. However, if you tie your figure of 8 so it looks like that at the beginning of the day, you'll find that there's been almost no slippage. So we're going to tie the alpine butterfly knot. Wrap the rope around your hand 3 times. Take the 3rd loop and place it between the middle 2 loops. Then take what appears to be the 3rd loop now, which was the 2nd, and pass it through the middle of the other 2 loops. Alpine butterfly. Now, the alpine butterfly is one to take your time learning because it's quite easy. I have to admit I did this in subsequent attempts to tie the knot as well, to mix up the order of these loops. So just once again for you, it's the 3rd loop, passes into the middle. What was the 2nd loop, which now appears to be the 3rd, counting from left to right, comes through the middle. You need to tension all 3 strands at once, or 4, like this. So what's the alpine butterfly for? Well, let's imagine this bit of the rope was quite severely damaged. Just to make it a bit vivid, if we imagine slicing through there with a knife or something, you'd find that actually the rope would still take a load along its length at 90 degrees to the butterfly knot. Now, with a tiny little loop like this, we wouldn't want to be recommending that, and also wouldn't want to recommend you climb on a damaged rope ever. However, it is one of the advanced uses of an alpine butterfly is to eliminate damage from the load bearing part, because you see this loop, it's no longer load bearing once the alpine butterfly is correctly tied. So that's your alpine butterfly knot. So there we are. thank you so much for watching and for following along. Please do get involved and send me those answers to the quiz. If you find some of the questions a bit difficult, just remember this is intended as a bit of fun. So feel free to go and search for what that answer is. If you let me know the questions where you had to go and look up the answer, then we can still have a winner and still score it. But really, it's just all about trying to get you guys to go out there and discover what a fantastic world of climbing there is for us to explore after this current crisis with the coronavirus comes to an end, of course. So as long as we keep working on our skills and we stay highly motivated, then we'll be in a great position once we can go back to some kind of normality to get back to climbing and get back to progressing and working together and all of that good stuff. So thanks very much and see you next week.